Welcome to the Inspiration North podcast, inspiring stories from inspirational people and how they found their passion, their true north. I'm James Eves.
And I'm Michelle Minikin, and this is the Inspiration North podcast.
Today's episode, helping others to live their fullest lives all year round, with Neina Sheldon. We talk about building your life and work around your light needs, how self-care, boundaries and looking after your own needs are important, and how she used to feel like Tigger and Eeyore at different times of the year.
Neina was diagnosed with Seasonal Affective Disorder, or SAD, in 2003, and now helps people and organisations understand how light impacts on health as the founder and director of Lightopia CIC, the home of light nutrition. With a third of UK adults experiencing SAD and winter blues for up to 6 months every year, and many experience vitamin D deficiency, sleep problems and social jet lag, the reality is that many of us aren't enjoying the full quality of life that we deserve. Lightopia aims to change this, encouraging everyone to make positive behavioural and environmental changes to live your light ideal.
So good morning, Neina. We finally got you onto the podcast. Thanks for joining us. How are you today?
Oh, I'm good, thank you. Thanks so much for having me on. It's been good to catch up.
Pleasure as always. So let's go with the first question. When you were little, did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up?
Yeah, I was like really into design and stuff like that. So I kind of wanted to do wedding dress. I think it was kind of jewelry maker. And I think it was really that I liked the idea of having a brief. And I think I went on from those things onto interior design when I was about 13. I wanted to be an interior designer. And I think it was about taking a brief and then delivering something that people really loved and like made a difference to their mood or their big day or whatever it was. But I remember I was really like charity minded as well when I was a kid. So like, oh God, I remember I was doing a cardboard box fun fair. With a friend in a garden. I can't even remember how old we must have been, maybe about 4 or 5, something like that. And we decided that we were going to make a cardboard box fun fair and charge people entry and then give the money to charity. But yeah, I think my entrepreneurship skills evolved slightly more and I got to a point of sponsorship and stuff like that. So I was doing like sponsored swims and things like that when I was up to probably about 15 and stuff like that I was doing. And then I went on to being wanting to be an event manager when I got to about 16. But, you know, obviously that was moving towards adult years then.
So were there any subjects at school which you think stood out that drew out those entrepreneurial elements, creative elements, event management type things?
I loved English. I'd say English was my best subject that I always really enjoyed the most, and particularly English literature. So, you know, the creative writing and poetry and everything like that. I loved all of that side of things. And it's probably no surprise that I became a copywriter and a marketeer in the end. But yeah, it was more, I quite enjoyed art as well. I don't think I was particularly good at it, but I really enjoyed doing it. And I got a little bit dissuaded, you know, when it came to picking GCSE topics. In my school, we didn't have 10, you know, or anything like that. We had quite like a few. And being the sort of person that I am, I decided against doing business, which drove my stepdad at the time mad because he thought I should do it. But I actually just wanted to escape school. So I went and did manufacturing, GNVQ, because I got to go out to college every Friday and I got out of certain subjects. So I didn't have to do certain topics at school then, or at least I didn't have to catch up on them later on. English literature and art, but like I say, I didn't end up studying art for GCSE or anything like that. And it was actually I left school. I was still 15 because I'm quite like a baby in the year. I've got a July birthday. So yeah, I kind of left school and went straight into a job. So I sort of left school on the Friday, started a job on the Monday in hospitality at KPMG. And it was there, actually, they had this May ball each year. And the marketing team were the ones that organised that. And I just was fascinated going to, because they actually let us attend the May ball, which was lovely of them. They were a fantastic company to work for. It was KPMG, it was Sodexo who they'd hired. And it was just spectacular. It was just the most amazing event, you know, never seen anything like it. And I just thought, wow, like, can you imagine making something like this happen for people, you know, and like just giving everybody such an amazing time. And I think that just made me get interested in business and marketing events management particularly, that's where I became, I want to do events. And that stayed with me until I graduated in business management. So I did A-level English literature while I was working full-time. I was doing about 55 hours a week, 4 nights of college. And I did some computing then. But yeah, I kind of then went on to do business, which again drove my stepdad absolutely crackers, because he'd been telling me to do a GMVQ in business, and all of a sudden I was interested in business. So I then did an A-level in business management, psychology. I went on to uni to do business management. So again, the poor stepdad was just like, I bloody told you,
We got there eventually.
Yeah. So I guess from there, it was like events management actually led into copywriting because of the work that I was doing for events management. I was doing speaker biographies, writing copy for newsletters and things like that. And it led me to think, I quite like writing. So yeah.
It's funny how the themes, the stuff that you're interested in at the age of 4 have been brought with you throughout your entire life. So that's an interesting one, isn't it? It was always then, and your stepdad probably saw that in you.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I know he used to push me quite a lot, and we had, obviously as adult, once I was an adult, we had sort of conversations about sometimes he would nearly push me over the edge because he was he saw an FU instinct almost, if you like, in me. And he was playing on that. But of course, I never knew that at the time. And I just thought he was being horrible to me, But yeah, no, he was just bringing out that instinct that I probably have, that I'll show you,
It's a commonly used parental tactic.
Yes, a little bit of reverse psychology. You'll never do this. You'll never be able to do that. So
hold my beer.
Yeah.
Cool.
So if that was business management at university, did anything change after university? What was after that?
Well, actually, while I was at uni, I was involved with an organisation called ISEC. So that kind of opened my eyes to a lot more as well. And so I was doing like sales and stuff like that while I was in ISEC, because it was a little bit like running a business. I became the president in the second year of the local committee. Again, I think it's that almost taking up a cause. The first year we'd done okay, but then we were at risk of being disbanded, which, obviously when it's something that you care about, you don't want to see happen. And I didn't want to go for the president position at all. It's not how I see myself. But I got kind of, persuaded to do it, to run for it against 2 other colleagues. And I won it. And so I was the president in my second year at uni, which was interesting because it meant that I didn't actually do that much university work. And I was probably putting about 35 hours a week into ISEC instead. And I managed to get a 2-2, but it really, sort of gave me a bit of a kick up the bum for my third year that I needed to step back from ISEC and what have you. But that gave me a lot of really good insight into running a business. Because of course, with ISEC, you had to do your local committee business plan, you had to do your finances, you were dealing with external stakeholders. We had a lot of partnerships with the likes of Accenture and P&G and what have you, and we're running events and stuff like that. So it was really good. It was a really good grounding, and we did okay. We managed to get the committee back on its feet and recruited a really strong board for the following year, which allowed me to step back, which was fantastic. But then when I left uni, I don't know if many people know, but in the marketing industry in the Northeast, it's quite difficult to get into. So I actually temped for 2.5 years after leaving uni. And the recruiters started to say to me, Nina, you need to get yourself a permanent job because it's starting to look like you can't actually get one, which was quite funny because actually what it was is more that I kept having these amazing opportunities coming up and I was just grabbing them. But there were 6-month opportunities here, 3 months there. Occasionally I was doing a bit of admin, which is great, but I ended up running the Port of Tyne's marketing department single-handedly for 6 months, which was quite interesting because I'd gone in as an administrator, like a marketing admin, and I was going to be doing press, just press clippings and sending out brochures. And they took the opportunity to think about what they wanted for their team. I ended up running the department for 6 months on my own. I had like people ringing up, press inquiries and and what have you. So I got some press training because, of course, you know, there can be some contentious topics. Yeah, it was quite interesting. Yeah, I mean, I was working, I bounced around from Northumbria a couple of times. So I did a little bit of temping at Northumbria in different departments. Got a job with the wellness show, actually. It was a guy called Mark Huntington, and he gave me my first sort of proper events management job, a company called Semaphore. And he ran the wellness show, and in hindsight, he was just a bit too early. It was a big wellness festival in the northeast in Newcastle. And yeah, he was just a little bit early. I think now if he ran it, it would be like, you know, massive. I mean, it was fine. It went okay. But I think, you know, he had bigger expectations for it. But it was a brilliant event. And the exhibitors were absolutely amazing, you know, really, really strong complementary therapies and everything in the northeast. But yeah, it was from doing that made me realize I actually really like writing. So I ended up going into marketing more generally. That's how I ended up at the Port of Tyne. And then doing all sorts really from there.
Was it all temping / freelancing? Have you ever had a proper job?
Yeah.
I'm asking you.
So the temping stopped when I got a job with Nigel Wright. So I went in as their marketing executive, quickly took on their international marketing as well. And I was taking a step up from being a marketing assistant into a marketing executive. And it was quite a baptism of fire because I was, you know, reporting to 10 different team managers. You know, that my boss was the director. So we didn't have a marketing manager between us. It was just the director. Then it was down to me and another colleague and designer and what have you. So I stayed there for 17 months. But then we got, you know, the 2018 crash. Not 2008 crash. And, you know, recruitment obviously suffered because people weren't getting jobs. So unfortunately, I lost my job. The first redundancy in my career. In marketing, you sort of learn that happens in particular because marketing budgets get cut when these times happen.
It makes no sense whatsoever, does it really, if you think about it?
No, but I guess for recruitment it does, in as much as, you know, they could only have so many support staff per recruit, you know, per head of a recruiter, because obviously the recruiters are the ones bringing the money into the business, whereas the support staff are kind of an overhead. Even though, yes, you know, we were extremely busy and it made no sense at the time because we were like, we've got too much work to do. So why would you get rid of somebody? But, you know, it's just how it works out. Yeah. And then I went back to Northumbria. I got a job with the law school. Took a step back to marketing assistant to get into Northumbria because I just loved it there. And so I was running the events actually in the law school. I did, what was there? I think I had like 70 events or something. No, 130. So it was 70 events and 80 sort of school visits in a year. So it was pretty busy. And it was everything from open days to school visits to going out to the schools and teaching them about law and stuff like that, which was really good. And then I got a promotion up into the School of Computing, Engineering and Information Sciences. And I was there for quite a while, and then we got restructured and what have you. And I eventually left Northumbria. I took voluntary severance because I didn't like the changes that were going on. And I just knew that there was more coming, and I just wasn't willing to take that. And I'd burned out as well. So yeah, I'd kind of gone through rather big changes in my personal life. So yeah, it was kind of a bit of a turning point for me, but a really positive one when I left there.
Yeah. I think burnout is very common in events management, isn't it? Because it is very intense, isn't it?
Yeah, I think marketing generally as well. It's like, you know, you're not like, I don't want to do down a marketing profession. Sometimes I used to sort of say to myself though, like, come on, you're not a surgeon, you're not a brain surgeon, you don't have people's lives in your hands. But at the same time, it's very deadline driven, so it could be quite stressful in that respect, you know, that you're always under the deadlines, and there's always more that you can be doing with marketing, and particularly with events, because of course there is absolute deadlines, you know, that can't be shifted because you've got a massive event on. You know, you're always constantly having to recalculate what's going on because of, you know, people or technology, the weather sometimes.
Yeah. And it's that constant troubleshooting, isn't it? And herding cats.
Yeah, God, yeah, definitely. But yeah, I mean, after I left Northumbria, I went to Silverbean, and I had a total career change again because, you know, they'd spotted something in me. I'd kind of gone a bit, I'd done some customer insights type work when I was at Northumbria. I wanted to, create a difference for my colleagues, and I started to do some customer journey mapping and some personas and stuff like that to help us out with the writing that we were doing. And I was managing social media on behalf of Northumbria as well. And so I just wanted to be able to content plan a little bit better. So I did like journey mapping and stuff. I was actually working with Silverbean on a clearing project. So we were trying to get Northumbria up to the top of the results for clearing, which we managed, or at least up onto the third result or up there. But yeah, so it was kind of they'd spotted something in me and said that's what we need. So when I said that I was leaving Northumbria, they said, "Oh, we've got something in mind," and they invited me to apply for Insights and Strategy Manager. So yeah, so I spent a year and a half there, and then I got made redundant from a position there, which was quite interesting because I kept saying that I wanted to make myself redundant at the basic level. You know, once we'd kind of got insights embedded into their structure, I kind of wanted that everybody took over that work and that I was going to do the next level of work. But I think they decided they weren't going to that next level. So I got made redundant and decided I was doing freelancing so that I could meet my light needs more than anything.
It's a funny term, isn't it? I got made redundant. You didn't, your job did.
My job got made redundant. Yeah, my post was made redundant. Yeah, it can feel very personal. I think when these things happen, it can feel quite personal at the time. But I know it's not. Do you know what I mean? And I think when my post was made redundant from Silverbean, there was no hard feelings there at all. You know, it was kind of, like I say, I'd been joking that, you know, I'd kind of wanted to. But the thing is that the next level of what I wanted to develop, because I created a brand new service and a whole change in the agency, I think it's fair to say, and it's kind of like it needed a lot more investment for the next level. And you know, the agency didn't want to go down that route. That's fine, you know, it was absolutely no hard feelings whatsoever. So it's one of those things. But it kind of freed me up then to go into freelance work. And also, you know, I think I'd kind of, by that point, I'd done a whole marketing career in offices, you know, full time in offices. Silverbean's environment didn't suit me. It was very dark. They put this film over the windows. You know, it was quite dark paint and stuff like that. And it was just, I was struggling with that. So I just thought, you know what, I think I'd already started running Little Lightroom by then as well. And it was just kind of, for me, it was, I guess, a bigger awakening of, you know, actually I need to meet my light needs. This is really important.
You talked about light needs. So for our listeners, do you want to explain that journey for us, please, Neina?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with Seasonal Affective Disorder back in 2003. I came up to university, as I mentioned. It was 2002 when I came up from Leeds and studied at Newcastle. Like, Leeds is very grey. It's kind of, you know, you get a lot of just moisture hanging in the air, and it's always this like mizzle, that I call it. And I think that I'd been suffering from SAD since I was being like a teenager, you know, probably from being about 15, 16. And obviously my mum had just thought it was just teenage hormones and stuff like that, which it will have been a little bit of that as well. But I think that it wasn't until I got up to Newcastle that I realised that there was something different, because it was actually like brighter up here. You know, you had, especially that first kind of winter, it was a lot of blue skies, lots of sunshine, and I felt better. And then I came down to Leeds for Christmas, and it was just like, oof, you know, just like something hitting me again. And again, I was working a lot of hours, so it's quite difficult sometimes with seasonal affective disorder, because it's never in isolation. You know, you've got obviously your own biology, your own sort of menstrual cycles, you've got your own like year cycles. You've got stresses that can be going on in life and things like that. So it's quite difficult sometimes to pull it out what's going on. But I felt better when I got back up to Newcastle, and I was like, I went to see the doctor, and it was early 2003. And I said to the doctor, you know, I feel like it's really strange, but I feel like I'm two different people, you know, in half the year. So I feel like I'm like Tigger in one part of the year and like Eeyore in the other. And it's still, I mean, it's a way that I use to describe it to a lot of people, because I think it's instantly recognizable, those differences in the characters. And it is really true. It's just like, you know, if you see me in spring and summer, I mean, I'm just like bouncing around, loads of energy. And then in sort of autumn and winter, if I'm not managing those light needs, then yeah, I can end up being, you know, really quite depressed. For those people that don't know what seasonal affective disorder is, it is a type of major depression, but it's on a scale. So you kind of have sort of one side of it. You know, you've got people that don't change at all with the seasons. And it just doesn't affect them. But I'd say they were quite few and far between, to be honest. And I think most people would recognise some level of change in themselves, whether they're just a little bit like, you know, just a little bit less kind of active and can't really be bothered, you know, maybe just feel a bit flat. You would say that they're suffering with winter blues or subsyndrome or SAD. But once you actually get to the point where it's impacting on your life significantly, that's when it's a major depression, and that's when it's diagnosed with seasonal affective disorder, or SAD for short. So yeah, so when I talk about meeting your light nutrition needs, it's kind of I've borrowed that phrase, I think it was from a BBC article that I read when I was reading more into seasonal affective disorder. I came across something called light nutrition. I thought I really like that because it explains it really well. So if you think about when you put the food into your body and you've got the labels, and you've got, you know, you're paying attention to what type of food you're putting into your body and what you expect that food to be able to do for you. It's a similar sort of principle with the kind of light that you put into your body and at what time of day and whether it's appropriate for that time of day. So just as you wouldn't eat like a big heavy carby meal on a nighttime just before you go to bed, it's a similar sort of principle with you shouldn't have bright blue artificial light from your screens just before you go to bed. If that makes sense. So yeah, it's things like that. It's just kind of being aware of your own needs and then working to meet them. But when we talk about light nutrition, people have different needs. So like if you have seasonal affective disorder, you might well need to just be that little bit more aware of your needs, you know, to go and get out and get light. And you need to prioritize that in your life. So does that explain it a little bit?
It does. So if you're feeling symptoms of you being more sluggish, it's affecting your day-to-day, your productivity, are there any top tips, I suppose, then, as to what could somebody do about, I don't know, where do you start, I suppose, I'm feeling a bit sluggish, actually, it's winter.
All I want to do is hiding on the sofa under a blanket, watching Netflix and eating, you know, popcorn.
Well, it's natural to a certain degree. So I think that part of it's just, you know, if you think back to caveman and cavewoman days, then, you know, we would have naturally got up with the sunrise and we would have, you know, gone back into our caves to protect ourselves. And we would have just had, you know, a fire going perhaps, you know, so we would have been, you know, in the sort of nice kind of dim orange light in the night time, and we would have got up with the sunrise and we'd have gone outside to gather our berries or go hunt and things like that. So we would have been out in the daylight a lot while we had the light. Whereas obviously, you know, you fast forward to now, we're obviously, you know, we're so far away from what our physiology is built for, and our physiology hasn't caught up with the lifestyles that we have. So I think it's really trying to keep that balance that, yes, we're not going to go back to caveman and cavewoman days. You know, you can if you want, you know, the Amish, they quite naturally like that. And actually they've got very low levels of seasonal affective disorder despite the latitude that they're at. But it's really more to do with making sure that you get out into morning light in particular. That's the first thing. So you're asking for like a starting point, James. It's very much that prioritizing getting natural light in the morning in particular, if you can. That helps to set what we call your circadian rhythm or your body clock.
Circadian rhythm is to do with how your body links to the time of day, is that?
That's right, yeah. It's your body clock. It's how your body knows what time of day it is. And light is the thing that actually sets that. So you've got like a special cell in your eye that detects light, and that tells your body that you've actually got several body clocks. You've got a main one in your brain, and then you've got several ones throughout your body, and they can end up being at different times. So you know, what time you go to bed and get up in the morning, what time you have some light, what time you eat, that can, even what time you exercise, it can all kind of govern what your body clock's doing. So yeah, it's really quite complex when you get into it, but it's also as simple as get out and get light, which can feel a bit strange. You know, you're just saying to people, just get out and get light. But that is kind of the crux of it, is that, you know, we need more exposure to natural light, but where that's not possible, then you can use something like a seasonal affective disorder lamp, which, yeah, you know, if you can see that, you know, obviously Charles got behind, but yeah, and it's, you know, you can use that. Like, generally we will sort of say like natural light's better for you because it's what we're adapted to have. You know, we've only had artificial light for 150 years, electric artificial light, you know, so we're not meant to have artificial light, but we do. And we're certainly not meant to have, you know, screens that emit all this really blue light until, you know, while we're trying to go to sleep and things like that. And blue light's not bad for you. That's something to be quite clear about as well. I've seen a lot recently on like blue light blocking glasses. And actually, yeah, maybe they're okay for evening, but you definitely don't want to be using them in the morning, because obviously you want the blue light because that stimulates your body clock to know what time of day it is. You know, if you think about the sort of light that you get first thing in the morning, it's very blue, you know, it's very stark. So that's what you want in the morning. So yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about Lightopia. So what drew you into becoming the home of light nutrition?
So yeah, it's I guess I became a bit like the poster girl for SAD, because I guess I started to learn how to manage seasonal affective disorder just through my own personal experience, but there wasn't a lot of information out there. Like, you know, the doctor, I was really lucky. I had a doctor that actually could recognize what was going on with me from my very vague, weird description of, you know, feeling like one person half the year and another person the other half. But yeah, I was really, really lucky that I actually got that diagnosis, because it gave me that starting point. I know some people don't love labels, you know, they're like, oh, you know, don't stick a label on things. But actually for me, I found that really useful, because I finally had an answer why I was feeling the way that I was. You know, I was feeling very down and very sort of lacking in energy. It just gave me that starting point. And I came across Seasonal Affective Disorder Association, which they closed down actually in 2018. So they left quite a big gap, which is partly a gap that we hope to fill with Lightopia. I'd started to learn how to manage it, but I was on the Lumi forum. So Lumi manufacture light boxes. So they're based down in Cambridge, so quite a small company, but they do an amazing job. They create these lights that we can use to help with seasonal affective disorder, but they also have these dawn simulators, and they've branched out into other things like light for skincare and things like that as well. But yeah, so I'd got SAD light, I'd got a dawn simulator. They were helping me, felt like I'd got my life back, you know. They were helping me get through autumn and winter. And it wasn't the whole piece of the jigsaw, but it was a big part of the jigsaw, was making sure that, you know, I got the light that I needed. I started helping people on the Lumi forum, just chatting away to people. People were getting diagnosed and then saying, oh, you know, what's everybody's experience with it? But of course, what was happening, this was in February, and everybody was just like, you know, hanging out their asses, you know, not feeling great. And all the people were on there for support, but nobody was there to give support. I was feeling okay. I kind of had it fairly well managed at the time. And so I was trying to give support, but then I was like, you know, nobody wants to like write their story out a million times. So I thought, oh, there must be a blog, you know, somewhere people have done, and there wasn't. So I decided to start one up. And at the time, it was really quite an odd decision to make, given that, you know, when you're like, if you're job hunting and stuff like that, you know, to kind of put your hands up and say, at that point when mental health wasn't something we talked about very much, you know, to sort of say, hey, I have a mental health issue that actually affects me every year. Like, you know, it's not something, yeah, like you wouldn't normally do that. Do you know what I mean? And it was kind of like, I think most of my family and friends will have felt like I was a bit mad at the time to do that, because it can be dangerous. You know what I mean? It can be dangerous to let people know that you have that, or at least it was back then, you know, you could be discriminated against. And I guess the only real recourse I had for that was, I don't want to work for somebody that would discriminate against me for this.
Yeah.
You know, so if that's what they're going to do, then I'm not going to be working for them anyway. So yeah, I kind of started to do this blog, and yeah, it kind of grew into some events. So I'd had this idea that I really wanted, like, I liked crafting still. And I wanted to help people to have like almost like a trio of community, crafting, and light therapy. Because one of the things people were telling me about was that they often thought about buying themselves a sad light, but they'd never used one. And they didn't know what it was like to sit in front of one, and they didn't know whether they'd like it. So I sort of started to put these little Lightroom events on, and I ran them for 3 years, once a month in Newcastle. And yeah, they were good, but they were very small. You could only have maybe a maximum of 10 people before it became not relaxing, because obviously all that crosstalk, and you're in a cafe and like, the coffee machine's going, and you couldn't scale that. I kind of have thought about scaling it in terms of, yeah, you could you could allow people to run little Lightroom cafes all around. It's quite similar to your Happy Cafe in some ways. And it's not something that I've got rid of completely, but I just wanted to take a bit of a pause from them and then just maybe come back to them later, because I was then developing Lightopia, which kind of builds it out. So Lightopia is not just about seasonal affective disorder. It's obviously grown out of that, but it's actually reflective of my developing understanding of how light actually impacts us in many different ways. Vitamin D deficiency, if we don't get enough light, we obviously can't produce vitamin D in autumn and winter here in the UK. So you have to take a supplement. Obviously circadian disruption, so that circadian rhythm thing, the body clock that I mentioned, if you are living out of alignment, which most of us are, so if you're a night owl and you're being forced to get up at 6 o'clock every morning to go to a job, you're probably like almost like sleepwalking. So you get something called social jet lag, and that can be like having jet lag. So yeah, I kind of feel like when I talk about, I use a phrase, live your light ideal. And what I mean by that is understanding what factors impact on your needs and then trying to build your life around those things. So if you're a night owl, then you're probably better off finding a job that you can start later in the day. And then your employer is going to get the best out of you and you're going to feel much healthier. So it's just that sort of thing.
So what have we missed talking about?
I think those are the kind of main points that led. I think I haven't really touched too much on the sort of, the burnout-y stuff, but then I think it's probably links in as well. Like, I think it is quite useful to touch on, because I think when we talk about seasonal affective disorder, one of the problems that we have is that we force ourselves through the autumn, winter sometimes, and we kind of Christmas in particular can be quite difficult for people if they have seasonal affective disorder, because what you want to do is hibernate, but what everybody else is expecting you to do is be really jolly and happy and sociable. The opposite of how you feel if you're obviously being impacted by SAD. So yeah, that can be quite difficult for people. And I think that pushing yourself through those months can be detrimental in the long term. Certainly when I had like a major burnout back in 2014, and there had been a lot of personal stuff going on as well. So I can't say that it was just down to SAD, but it was certainly a contributing factor. It was the clocks going back seems to, just something triggered in me, and it was almost like these anxiety type symptoms. And then my body just ground to a halt and kind of woke up one morning, couldn't move out of bed. So it took quite a long time to recover from that. So I think, one of the things that, we talk about is learning from failure. And for me, that felt like one of the biggest failures, because I hadn't listened to my body. And part of the problem with that, we've talked before, in the past, just in separate conversations about sort of boundaries and, self-care. And it's kind of, I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I needed to learn, was about self-care and boundaries and looking after my own needs. But I didn't always even recognize my needs. I think I was so used to just pushing on through. Just going back to that earlier conversation about with my stepdad and stuff like that, I'm so used to having lots of projects, lots on, and I'll just push myself through whatever it is that I'm doing. And yeah, I've kind of learned really the hard way that you can't do that. That your body will do it for so long, and then it'll let you know that you've gone too far.
There's a lot of good girl conditioning in there as well.
Yes,
Give,
a
give,
lot of
give,
that.
give. You have to do everything for everybody else, and your needs come last.
Have to, should, must, those kind of words that you have to be everything to everybody all the time, and just like you say, just giving constantly. And
it's almost until you get to the point in life that you can just become a grouchy old woman. It's great.
Maybe that's what it is. But I think learning about boundaries did a lot for me, actually. Like, I think if family and friends hear me, they'll probably roll their eyes, because it was a new thing to me. Like, I think it sounds so silly to say it, but it was quite a new thing to me, because I hadn't really been taught about it ever in my life. And I've had several times of people bullying me, and as an adult and a child. And you just take it, because that's what you've been taught is what you just get on with things. And so I think I was reading these books and I was like, oh my word, like, it's actually not okay for people to just ride roughshod over what I want, and it's actually not okay for me to ride roughshod over what my body needs. So that was a big learning point for me, which was, I need to actually learn how to tune into my body and listen to what it needs and give it what it needs, rather than kind of just constantly pushing through and then burning out and having these cycles of burnout, which obviously ultimately led to a big one. But you learn that lesson. But I think out of that lesson has come the whole stuff with Lightopia. Like I say, yes, it is about light, but I think it's also about other things like self-compassion and self-care and boundaries, and being able to recognize those needs and then meet them as well.
That's awesome. Brilliant. So thank you for that. We're going to move on to our quick fire round. So we've taken something quite deep and meaningful, and we're totally changing the subject here. Sorry about that. So question number 1 is, what is your favourite smell?
Favourite smell?
Yep.
I think probably freshly baked bread. I used to bake bread when I was a student on a Sunday. I just found it really relaxing.
What made you stop?
I don't know. Probably I discovered I had a gluten intolerance. But probably just timing as well. Just, getting busy and things. Didn't feel like I had the time to do a lot of baking.
Question number 2. Who would you most like to sit next to on a 10-hour flight, and why?
I reckon somebody like Barack Obama would be amazing to sit next to. Just because I think that, as America's first Black president, he just have so many amazing things to say and stories to share, but he also just seems like such a really thoroughly decent human being that I just kind of think he would be fascinating to talk to, but also lovely to talk to.
I'm in the middle of, I started this week reading his new book. It's like 27 hours long or something crazy. It could be 29 hours long. So I'm spending a lot of time with Barack at the moment. So
nice.
The book before this was Matthew McConaughey. So I'm literally boring the living daylights out of, as I had Matthew Mentionitis last week, and this week it's all about Barack. So I love Audible audio books. They're brilliant. Okay. And question number 3 is, what skill have you always wanted to learn?
Drumming, but I don't know why. I've got no idea why. I just always fancied being able to play the drums, but I'm not sure if I have the coordination for it. But I kind of think that it must be a bit like driving a car somehow.
We did very brief drumming lessons at school. I loved it because you felt what's the Muppet that does the drums?
Animal.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
It was like Animal. It's so cool.
I don't know what it is about it. I just felt like it'd be quite fun to do, and I don't even want to become a good drummer. I just think it's one of those things that those big steel, like that you get the bands that and they just look like they're having so much fun.
They do. Awesome. So if anybody's listening and wants to buy Neina a Christmas present, a drum kit would be lovely.
I'm not sure what my fiance would have to say about that.
That would be hilarious for the neighbours.
One way to get people up to get their light needs in the morning, you go around with a drum. ring on people's doors and just drum outside the house. Maybe not. It's not easy to scale that one. So the final question, we can pick you up in the Inspiration North DeLorean and take you back to your 18-year-old self. What advice would you give?
Probably, would you be able to give the benefit of hindsight now? Because it would have to be about managing SAD, because I kind of think that year after year, you're spending up to 6 months of your life not feeling okay, like feeling, tired and a little bit down and stuff like that, or very down. It feels like it steals a lot of your life when you're not managing it very well. So yeah, if I was to go back to the 18-year-old self, I would teach myself how to manage seasonal affective disorder so that I can actually just feel like I can live my fullest life all year round, which is what I'm trying to help other people do now. Lovely advice.
Got a bit emotional about that one.
So for our listeners, if you'd like to learn more about light nutrition, find out all the exciting things that Lightopia are up to in the coming months, then go to the website www.lightopia.co.uk. Thanks for joining us, Neina. It's been really educational and informative.
Yeah, it has been.
It's been great. Thank you very much.
Thank you ever so much for finally agreeing to come on the Inspiration Love podcast. We've been dropping hints for quite a while now.
Yes.
Thanks, Neina.
But Lightopia is getting, sort of getting there now. It felt like it was probably early days before, but it's we're starting to build some momentum, which is brilliant.
Well, thank you ever so much. Have a lovely day.
Brilliant. You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening. Check out all the show notes at inspirationnorth.com. Join us again for the next episode when we'll be chatting to another inspirational person. If you like this, subscribe and tell your friends. If you didn't like this, subscribe anyway and tell everybody.